So, Preston, there was this one thing I wanted to discuss with you briefly about the interview that Emily Carey, who plays young Alicent, did a while back, where she says some interesting things, and it makes me think whether or not the showrunners are removing scenes that would kind of help illustrate the characters a bit more. Kind of like how Daemon, they cut out a scene of Daemon hugging his daughters after Laena's death. But in this interview here, the actress says that she filmed a scene in where she confesses her love of Christian Cole to Rhaenyra. Did you hear about this?
Yeah. No, I read about that as well. And I was trying to place when it would even occur. Because Kristen Cole is introduced mid season one. I mean, mid episode one. And then, episode two, she gets engaged to Viserys at the end. And there's that rift between them because, she's marrying the dad. And I'm trying to think, did they even share that many scenes together in that second episode? Because the whole thing is that Viserys is reeling from his wife's death, and Rhaenyra is kind of missing, and he has no one to talk to, and Alicent is inserting herself in there and stuff like that. So I don't know when they would have fitted in. It might be, how much in love does it mean? Because I'm also thinking about a parallel scene with the hands tourney in a Game of Thrones where Jane Poole talks about how she's really smitten with Beric Dondarrion. So I don't know if it's like young girl, oh, I'm so in love with him, kind of like puppy love kind of thing, or if it's really like, oh my gosh,
Well, have you ever been on the other side of this? Because I have. I remember when I was a teenager in high school, and these girls that I knew, I was friends with both of them, and they were both best friends. And one of them, confessed to the other that they liked me, and the other one tried hooking up with me. And it was just like a mess. They were not friends. This is something like apparently girls do all the time. Girls are very catty and insane like that.
Yeah. This is, I mean, I do think everybody does it a little bit, but it's very, like, it's kind of a stereotypical thing, with young girls that like, I think it has something to do with, looks are fairly relative. And if all of society starts praising one aspect as beautiful, everybody starts thinking it's beautiful. You know how like back in the day, fat women were considered beautiful, but now women want to be skinny. Or like back in the day, pale was very attractive, and now in America people want to be tan, right. But over in other countries they want to be pale. It's kind of like there's a group think, right? And so if your friend starts saying that person's hot because you're a social creature, you start thinking they're hot, and so that kind of stuff happens. But yeah, I've definitely known about situations where, specifically, one bestie admits that she has a crush on some boy, and so the other girl goes for him.
Well, the actress here makes a very good point. I'll read her quote. She says, first off, there's a betrayal of, you lied to me, then the betrayal of, I swear this upon the memory of my mother, which is what you see in episode 2 with their shared trauma. It's something that they bond over. Alicent took Rhaenyra to the Sept and showed her this emotional vulnerability and let her see this part of her that she doesn't really show anyone, which, yeah. And then it's the betrayal of, hold on, you slept with him, and I'm in love with him, and you know this. That's not fair. Alicent is all about duty, and through, it's always about duty versus heart with her. And I'm glad that I got to show this, blah, blah, blah. So, she makes a good point. Now, this would probably have to be around, I'm assuming episode 1. I think it was you or someone else who made the point that maybe this was in the early script. Okay, so if there was in the early script and they changed it, why is she mentioning it here? I'm assuming because she's mentioning it here, it was a deleted scene. And I'm wondering if they cut it out because they were afraid that Rhaenyra would look like an asshole. Which is funny because
Rhaenyra's already an asshole, but like, I think that as actors, they do so many table reads and they do so many rehearsings and they memorize lines and then they spew them out and then they forget stuff. You know, it's a difficult work. Especially with regards to like memory and the amount of material that they have to absorb. And sometimes, you know, people are changing scripts and they're working them and you don't know what version you have. So, you know, I legitimately think there was probably some script at some point that had that in it. And either just for like time or whatever, or it's just like another wrinkle that they didn't want to add. They cut it. I think it would have been more interesting when you start telling me the story of it and like how cool it kind of would have been to have that added layer of jealousy between the two young women. It just makes me think again, like, man, I wish this they had stretched the 5 episodes into 10 and made, you know, the young actors season 1. Like when you start adding these things, I'm like, that would have been really fun. It would have been really neat to delve into these little things like that.
I'm assuming they cut this out because they don't want Rhaenyra to be an asshole, which I know people are going to ask, how is she? Rhaenyra is a douche because, well, if you go back to episode 3, like, she's unnecessarily insulting some of the ladies of the court. She's kind of low-key insulting Jason Lannister, and yes, he deserves it, but he's a Lannister. It's a great house of Westeros.
You're right.
And, like, she's yelling at her father in front of, like, all the important people in the kingdom, like,
sure, she's sleeping with Kristen Cole when he could die if they find out about that.
Insulting some of the lords in the Stormlands in episode 4.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. She's absolutely a jerk. And yeah, but man, it would have been fun. It would have been fun because now that I'm looking at old Alicent, and you start thinking like there must be this little thing still in the back of her mind that she's still in love with Kristen Cole on some level, and they're connecting and bonding over their hatred of Rhaenyra, which is kind of like this new added wrinkle to their relationship, that Alicent wants to be close to Kristen and the thing they have to be close about is their hatred of Rhaenyra. You know, it adds this whole dimension, and I do really kind of like it. I just wish there was more time to develop it. It would have been really fun.
And the way I see it is, like, it's not that, like, Alicent really cares that Rhaenyra slept with a man that she's in love with. I would also argue that it's because Rhaenyra was deceptive during the whole discussion. Like, yeah, of course Rhaenyra had to lie about it because her whole future depends on it. And, like, how can she really trust Alicent not to tell anybody? Because Alicent is the mother of Rhaenyra's competition. Right. And, you know, who knows? Alicent could use that information against her, so I can understand the lie. But also at the same time, Alicent finding it out as a lie adds another layer to it because Rhaenyra can't be trusted. Right? Because Otto tells Alicent, yeah, Rhaenyra may come and try to kill your kids. Now, obviously, this is the Marvel Civil War discussion. If Iron Man and Tony sat down in a room for more than 5 minutes, they could have hashed everything out. Alicent could go to Rhaenyra and say, hey, I'm really worried that you're going to kill my kids if you come to power. Rhaenyra could just say, I would never do that. But how can I trust you now? Because you lied on your mother's name. Right. And you slept with a guy I like.
Like, logically speaking, it's like, everything is kind of one big misunderstanding, and it's not really realistic that these characters are living in such a small environment together for so many years and never sit down and have these conversations.
Are you saying that House of the Dragon is one giant episode of Three's Company? Because that's what it kind of sounds like.
Yes. It is, except that in an episode of Three's Company, the misunderstanding takes place over 24 hours or 2 days, not 10 years. You know, like it's fine. It's TV. You know, there's some suspension of disbelief, but yeah, it would have been really fun to explore all these little intricacies. We should also remember that these people are, socially and emotionally stunted. Like, Alicent was forced into a marriage at a very young age. She's never really spoken to many men in her life. When you start thinking, like, who are the men that she knows? Well, she knows her dad, fucked up individual number 1. She knows her husband, fucked up individual number 2. And then her best friend was Rhaenyra, fucked up individual number 3. Like, and then she's lonely. You know, she doesn't have anybody else. Her mother's dead. She doesn't have any siblings at court. Like,
is Viserys really that fucked up though? I feel like he's the least fucked up, kinda.
He's that's the thing, right? He's in the land of the blind, the man with one eye, like, is king. Like, look, Viserys has a lot of problems. But yeah, is he more normal than everyone around him? Sure. I guess. And this is a guy who's still obsessed with prophecy and is building an enormous, oversized, recreation of Valyria, and who, like, you know, was responsible for killing his wife. So, I mean, and he's the least screwed up one, you know, so, yeah. But yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad. It would have been fun. Would have been fun to have that little wrinkle in the story.